Hello, good evening, and welcome to Varsity Maine Live for the Portland Press Herald. I am Travis Lazarzik, and tonight I am joined by my colleague Steve Craig from the Press Herald, and making his Varsity Maine Live debut, the editor of the sports editor, I should say, of the Kennebec Journal, Morning Sentinel, and Times Record. He has one of the best ringtones you'll ever hear, but I hope we don't hear it during the show. Bill Stewart, guys, thanks for being with us. Our
Welcome.
guest tonight is just starting her career as the athletic director at Mount View High School. At 23 years old, she is the youngest athletic director in the state, Krista Porter. Krista, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
You kind of jumped right into this job right before the holidays. It's
Yep.
a tough job, even in the best of times, and you're jumping in the middle of like the toughest part of a pandemic. So I'll just ask you, how's it going so far?
It's been pretty good so far. We've been pretty lucky at Mount View so far through the season. Unfortunately, the last week we've kind of hit a roadblock on the COVID front, but it hasn't been too bad. We have a lot of support staff that is helping me kind of navigate that situation so I can get my feet in the door.
Krista, whether you were 23 or 43, you're still your first couple of days on the job. What jumped out at you as something that you may have thought you were prepared for, but once you actually had to deal with it, you realized this will take some time to, be comfortable or learn or do better the next time?
Yeah, I think one thing is scheduling. It takes a lot to figure out how to schedule around other teams, and you might have an open day, but the other team might not have an open day, and that's definitely one thing that has been a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, for sure.
And we talked about this a little bit off air, but who do you think kind of helped point you in this direction, that this was a career that you did want to pursue?
When I was in high school, my athletic director, Chuck Carter, who's now the athletic director at Erskine, he and my athletic trainer, who's my right-hand man right now at Mount View, he's been there for 15 years. They both made the athletic department look like it was smoothly run. It was a fun job to be in. They made it look like it was easy. And I know it's not easy, but they made it look easy, so that kind of made me want to be in this field so I could be around sports forever.
We apologize. Bill's having some technical issues, so we're going to just keep going. Krista, you're in a Kennebec Valley Athletic Conference with a lot of veteran athletic directors. What's some of the good advice some of those guys have given you?
Yeah, they've all been amazing. Most the good advice has just been like, stick with your gut. Don't let anybody push you around, so to speak. Be strict with your philosophies and stick with it. Don't succumb to anything. All the KVAC athletic directors have been great. They've all let me know that if I need anything, just give them a ring and they'll help me out. So I couldn't be in a better conference, I don't think.
So we got you back, Bill?
Yeah, I'm back.
Right.
I'm back. I don't know what was going on there. But so listen, I got to ask, has anyone just ever not believed you that you're an athletic director? Have you shown up somewhere or is...
One of my first days, I don't remember who it was, maybe an official, I said, I'm the new athletic director here at Mount View, and he was like, aren't you a little young? I was like, yeah.
Yeah, you're probably going to get that a lot, maybe.
Yep.
Yeah, they'll probably just think you're with the team, or maybe you forgot you're. Oh, I'm sorry to see you're injured.
Yeah, I think some coaches might think that initially when I'm showing them the locker room or whatever, but.
Yeah, I know you've only been on the job since mid-December, but what are one or two goals that you'd like to, strive to meet at Mount View? Is there something in particular that you're passionate about, or that you hope to be able to improve or change?
I'm I've always really been big on sportsmanship, and all the teams that I've been on have been really big on sportsmanship. So I want to. Mount View has done well in the past with sportsmanship, but I kind of want to get back to that, being some of the top contenders for sportsmanship, but also still playing at the higher level that at Mount View Sports can play at.
And sort of going off that, how should coaches be evaluated these days? And I guess what's your approach to evaluating coaches?
I think one big thing is just how they interact with the team. You have to, as a coach, you have to have a good relationship with your team. If you don't have a good relationship, there's no trust. They're not going to trust that you know what you're doing, that you know what you're talking about. So one big thing for me evaluating would be just seeing how the team interacts with the coach. Another thing would be the sportsmanship part of it. Is the coach yelling at the officials all game long? Is the coach arguing with calls all game long? That type of stuff. And then the obvious things like win-loss record, that type of stuff.
Krista, you said you graduated from Mount View in 2016?
Correct.
I imagine some of the coaches that you're now the boss of were there when you were a student athlete.
Yes.
What's that like now, being the boss of someone who used to be basically, in charge of you as a student athlete?
I haven't run into
Gotta
it
be a weird
too
transition.
Yeah, I haven't run into it too much yet because our basketball coaches, I didn't actually play basketball. I managed the boys team when I was in high school, but all the basketball coaches are different from when I was in high school. So I haven't run into that too much, but the field hockey coach is my field hockey coach that I had when I was in high school. And so that'll definitely be an interesting transition once we go into the fall for sure.
Well, you'll be a little more experienced and maybe have your,
Yeah.
some of the. But yes, that'd be interesting. Well, I hope you had a good. You must have had a pretty good experience because you played field hockey at Thomas College too. So,
yeah,
is that coach on pretty good footing right now?
Yeah, she is.
All right, Krista Porter, we thank you for your time tonight. We know you're very busy in your new job. Thanks for joining us on Varsity Maine Live.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Nice to meet you, Krista. Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, good luck.
All right, now we will move on to Athletes of the Week. It's chock full. So we'll start with Winnie La Rochelle, Rangeley girls basketball. She notched double-doubles in consecutive games last week, first scoring 23 points and dishing out 10 assists in a win over Pine Tree Academy on Friday. The following afternoon, she scored 25 points and grabbed 10 rebounds in a win over Socopee Valley. Caden Pettit from Biddeford, Massabesic, Old Orchard Beach Hockey. He scored 2 goals and had an assist in a 3-2 win over Marshwood Trape Sanford Noble. Scarborough senior Lindsay Fiorello scored 16 points all in the final 3 quarters of the Red Storm, knocked off previously undefeated Gorham 44-39 on Tuesday. Gorham led 11-0 after one period. Marshall Fowler from Chevrolet Wrestling, he competed at 160 pounds, and the senior continued his unbeaten season Saturday, winning the Zeb Levitt Memorial Invitational hosted by Chevrolet, pinning Owen McDuffie of Wyndham Great New Gloucester Westbrook midway through the third period. Steve, you were at that event. What can you tell us about how Marshall's wrestling right now?
Well, very well, and I'd say he's got to be the favorite in A South at least. He earlier this year won the Noble Invitational. He said after the match that actually his match with McDuffie, which went midway through the third period before he pinned him, was the toughest match he'd had this year. Also, kind of a funny anecdote. After the match, it was very apparent that these two guys respected each other and liked each other. They gave each other a couple of big bro hugs. So I asked him about McDuffie, and he said, well, he broke my nose in 8th grade and then again in 9th grade during matches. Not malicious. He made sure he pointed that out. But so this time it was like a double win for Marshall. He won the match, won the tournament, or maybe a triple win. And his nose came through unscathed.
Sounds like he owes Owen McDuffie a broken nose at least, or
I didn't get the sense he was that sort of kid. One thing I did see was that Fowler is very strong in the upper body. If he gets a hold of some guy, they're probably going to be in trouble. He looked like a pretty talented wrestler.
Remember covering him on the very good Chevrolet State Championship 8-man football team this fall. So, Brady Hopkins from Coney Boys Basketball, he hit 6 3-pointers and scored 22 points in a 71-29 win over Erskine. Wesley Clements from Edward Little Boys Hockey, he scored a hat trick in the Red 80s 5-4 win over Bangor on Saturday in a battle of the top teams in the Class A heel point standings. Chever's sophomore Emma Lizotte continues to impress. She scored 12 points in a 62-20 win over Edward Little on Saturday. Then she had 21 points and 21 rebounds in a 48-29 win over Portland on Tuesday. Will Davies from Thornton Academy boys basketball, he's a junior and the son of Coach Bob Davies. He scored 20 points, including the go-ahead basket as Thornton Academy handed South Portland its first loss of the season, 58-53 Tuesday night. Thornton improved to 8-2 in AA South. Gardner's junior Lizzie Gruber had 14 points, 13 rebounds, and 5 blocks in a win over Mount Ararat. Charlie Houghton from Deergo boys basketball, he pulled in 10 rebounds and put up a program regular season record 43 points in the Cougars' win over Carabec on Tuesday. He followed it up with 10 and 16 points, respectively, in wins over Mount Abram and Lisbon. The Marina Cook girls and boys Nordic ski team swept the first races of the season at Black Mountain in Rumford. Eliza Bergdahl of Marina Cook won the 5K freestyle at 19 minutes 31.8 seconds, and Max Olmstead of Marina Cook won the boys 5K freestyle in 13 minutes 51.6 seconds. Bill, it's been kind of a tough start for just to get out there on the snow for everybody, but the Marina Cook teams look like they're state contenders once again.
Yeah, so I mean, it has been a tough start. Marana. I was talking to Marana Cook coach Steve DeAngelis, today, and asked him how everything was going, and his answer was pretty much, I don't really know. They've had 5 scheduled races, and they've only been able to do 2 of them for different reasons. And of those 2 races, the team's done. One of them was on some ice on a soccer field. So what are you going to get out of that, right? So, but he does have 30 kids out combined for the boys and girls program, which a little down compared to recent years, but that's still relatively healthy for a Nordic ski program. So, you'd expect at the end of this, season, assuming they can get more races and sort of get themselves going, that they'll be there at the end.
Definitely. Thank you. Trevor Brown from Adomic Valley boys basketball. He's a senior and became the 5th player in school history to reach 1,000 points when he scored 24 Friday in a road win at MCI in Pittsfield. He stayed hot with a season-high 30 points in a home win against Marana Cook on Tuesday. Mason Desjardins of Forest Hills, he scored 68 points in one day. He scored 36 and 32 in a doubleheader sweep of Temple. But last but not least, Walker Oliver told Mason Desjardins, that's nice, but he went out and scored 64 points Friday in a 95-46 win over Washburn. Oliver's 64 points is the most points in a single game by a Maine high school player since the three-point line was added to the game in 1987. But he didn't really need it because he only made 2 threes in this game. He made 26 twos and was 6 for 7 at the line. He scored 32 points in the first quarter. And we also have to give a shout out to a Varsity Maine alum, Sylvia Lockley, 2018 Varsity Maine Girls Skier of the Year. Today, the Yarmouth High grad was selected to the U.S. Olympic cross-country ski team. Sophia will be competing in the Beijing Olympics in February. So good job, Sophia. That's nice to see a Maine kid going to the highest level. We had a couple coach milestones this week as well. Bill Goodman, the Chevers girls coach, basketball coach, notched his 200th career win, and Mike Giordano for Scarborough girls basketball had his 300th win. That's 294 wins at South Portland, 294 at Scarborough. So congratulations to everybody. Before we get to the polls, guys, I want to talk real quick. Today, Bill, the Brunswick football team won their football appeal and will be able to have a season next year after not finishing last season due to hazing. The rule is typically you don't finish the season, you go on a 2-year hiatus. What can you tell us about how that meeting with the MPA worked today?
Sure. So they met with the MPA's, one of their, thousands of committees that they have, the Interscholastic Management Committee. They presented the appeal. The committee went into executive session, came back out, made a decision, and they went ahead with it. So there will be varsity football in 2022. It's been quite the issue. Here it's quite the topic anyway. Across the state. It's been a and actually after that decision came out, I received 2 text messages today, one from someone connected to the Brunswick program who expressed euphoria and relief, and someone connected to a rival program who expressed outrage over the fact of this decision. So it's been polarizing, but they got the appeal. They're off and running, and football's back in this fall.
Steve, you covered this story.
I'm shaking my head because outrage at this decision is the wrong response. The MPA would have been sending a message that would say, essentially, keep all this under the rug, because if you do let it out, if you do enforce rules, if you do crack down on your own programs, then you're basically putting a nail in that program for the rest of their life. I, the NPA absolutely made the right decision this time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
and
looks
I'm
like
not sure anyone was
coaches.
surprised by it, but
Yeah.
No, but I'm
So
surprised that people would be outraged, because if the shoe was on the other foot, they wouldn't be responding that way. Um, and especially, uh, I'll just leave it at that.
yeah, well, it looks like the coaches who were involved are gone. The seniors who were involved will be gone. It's a chance for the Brunswick program to just kind of restart itself in a good light.
Well, I hope so. They'll have to actually, hire somebody. And I know, reading our colleague Drew Bonenfont's story, it does sound like they have a Brunswick school administration is trying to institute some anti-hazing policies that will be a little more proactive than what they had previously, and are more in line with what experts in the field of hazing and bullying would say that they should have, that every school should have, not just somebody who had an incident. So yeah, I hope so.
sure.
And obviously Brunswick's been very successful with their football
Sure.
program, and previous coach Dan Cooper did a great job with that team in terms of wins and losses and participation, and they had an identity, um, you know. But I, I I I always had felt that the discipline that was meted out was appropriate, and I think it would have been completely unfair to penalize that program further.
Yeah. Now, I mean, just saying all that, I mean, to play devil's advocate a little bit, I mean, I think the people who might be upset about it are asking a little bit about what's up with the victims here. We're not talking about just the kids who lost a season, right? I mean, there's that component of it too. We're hearing a lot of, oh, these kids need football and it's such an important part of their lives and we can't just shut this down. And while some of that is definitely true, there's that other aspect to it that there were victims in this situation, and how are they doing? We're just not hearing a whole lot about that.
Well, I would agree with you on that, Bill. I mean, that can't be forgotten, but I don't think punishing the program for another 2 years is really going to help those victims one way or the other.
Hmm.
That's the help that they need is not really connected to what happens going forward with a newly revamped program under new direction.
Okay, this story is certainly going to be around for a while, and I'm sure we will touch on it again throughout the season, and definitely next fall when the football season restarts. Looking at the Varsity Maine polls, you can look at these on varsitymaine.com. These are voted on by sports writers from around the Maine Today media community. Starting with girls hockey, number one, Lewiston, with all six first place votes. They kind of cemented themselves as number one with a big win earlier this week with a win over number two, Chevers, Old Orchard Beach, Kennebuck, Wyndham. Number three is Cape Elizabeth, Waynfleet, South Portland. Number four is Scarborough, and number five is Mount Ararat. Boys hockey, Edward Little gets all six first place votes. They had a big win over number two, Bangor. South Portland, Freeport, Waynfleet is number three, but they had a tough loss to Scarborough, who seems to be coming on again earlier tonight. Number four, Messalonski, and number five, Greeley. Bill, this Messalonski team just kind of keeps rolling along.
Yeah, and I think coming into the season, a lot of people were sort of wondering how this, how B North was going to be, but they sort of established itself as that team to beat. So, we'll see what happens from here. But they certainly have picked up two big wins over Camden, so that's been the toughest competition so far.
Right. Boys basketball. This came out before games from tonight. Number one, we have a tie. Brewer with four first place votes, and Edward Little with three first place votes. I think this is going to change next week, fellas, because tonight Nokomis defeated Brewer in a big game between the top two teams in Class A North, 72-43. Uh, Bill, Nokomis really made a statement tonight, didn't they?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And I don't think Nokomis had a first place vote in the poll. That's obviously likely going to change this week. And this was probably, it might have been its last real big test before the end of the regular season. Nokomis has 7 games left, and their opponents have a combined record of 24-43 in that stretch. And they only play 2 teams with winning records the rest of the way. So this was a huge test for Nokomis. It passed big time, and we'll see where it goes from here.
Number three is last week's number one, South Portland. They still get a first place vote. Steve, they lost to Thornton Academy, who's number five. Nokomis is number four. Um, Good feeling South Portland's going to be just fine coming off of that loss, though.
Right. And you know what? This could be one of those classic times where maybe this is good for them because I was looking at their upcoming schedule after that game. And, we talked about this previously. Double A South at this point is not very strong, frankly, after you get past Thornton and South Portland. And so it was hard to see that if they got by Thornton that they wouldn't run the table, and sometimes that's hard to go into the tournament without a loss. And they've had two very close games with Thornton, and I would anticipate that those will be the teams in the Double A South regional final.
Okay. Finally, in girls basketball, we have number one Oxford Hills with 7 first place votes. Number 2 Chevers with 1, followed by number 3 Skowhegan, number 4 Gorham, and number 5 Brunswick. That leads into kind of our games to look forward to. Saturday, guys, we have Oxford Hills playing at Chevers, undefeated top 2 teams in the state, top 2 teams in Double A North going at it. That should be a good one. Another good one that I'm going to be checking out tomorrow in girls hockey, Scarborough versus Chevers. That's 2 top 5 teams. Scarborough's number 4, Chevers is number 2. Uh, Steve, what games are you looking forward to coming up?
Well, I'm not going to the game because Michael Hoffer is, but I'll be curious to see how Falmouth does at Portland tomorrow night. Portland's a tough, scrappy defensive team, and Falmouth, we did a story on them earlier this week. They have Jack Stoll's averaging 23 a game. Brady Coyne's averaging a tick over 20. They're the 2 leading scorers in A South. Falmouth likes to run and put up points, but Falmouth, it'll be 15 days since Falmouth's last game. So, they could have a little rust. That'll be interesting to see how that game goes. And there's a lot of good matchups coming up.
Yeah. Bill, how about you? What's coming up in Central Maine that you're looking forward to?
Well, you just mentioned the Skowhegan girls. The Riverhawks are threatening to just run away with Class A North, and it will play Coney on Saturday, which should be a pretty interesting game. Coney had a couple additions to the roster. It's right there in the mix, in this A North, and I guess it'll be really interesting to see, how close that gap is, I guess. But right now, Skowhegan has just been really having its way with the rest of the teams in A North anyway. So.
Does that include Lawrence as well, Bill? Because I see where Lawrence
Does.
only has the one loss. So you think there's a fairly big gap there between
I
those
think
teams?
so, and Lawrence has dealt with some injuries of late, and they're playing this evening. And last time we checked, Skowhegan was up pretty comfortably too.
I was going to ask if you knew an update from that game. Our friend Dave Dyer is covering that one in Skowhegan. So, okay, that's going to do it this week for Varsity Maine Live. Be sure to check out all our coverage at pressherald.com, centralmaine.com, sunjournal.com, timesrecord.com, and of course, varsitymaine.com. For Steve, for Bill, and for Krista, I'm Travis. Thanks for joining us this week on Varsity Maine Live.